Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
That's right. And we also tell true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
Heck yeah, we do. What are we talking about today, Britt?
Oh, I'm so excited about today. We're talking about lore from Latin America.
Ooh.
I have been wanting to talk about this topic for maybe since we started the podcast. So I'm glad that you are on board, and we are going to dive into some fun, creepy lore. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I was thinking about this choice of topic, and I was like, you grew up in Texas, so South America and Mexico, it's all real adjacent to you. So it probably was, you were surrounded probably by some of these legends and lore more than me growing up in New York.
Yeah. Actually, what inspired this, my brother is from Mexico, and they came to visit one time, and him and his wife, this was shortly after we started the podcast, they just started going off on stories that they heard from childhood, experiences that they've had, and I was like, oh, I'm into this.
Alejandro, right?
Alejandro and his wife, Yarida, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh, well, I'm excited to hear that. Well, why don't you start us off then?
Okay. So Yarida is the one that told me about this lore of La Lechuza. And it's most commonly the lore is spread from around the Mexico, South American, Texas kind of, even though I know we said Latin America. It is a little Texas too. But you know what I'm going to do instead of just describing what La Lechuza is? I'm going to read you a first-person story.
I'd love to hear it.
This story comes from Canachu. This happened when I was only a few weeks old, and my mother decided to go to Mexico to show me to her family who lives there. She decided to go by bus all the way there. When we got there, my mother told me that her family decided to have a big party to celebrate our arrival. When it was over, my grandmother took my mom and I to the guest room where we would be sleeping. My grandma brought an old school bassinet for me to sleep in while my mother slept in a bed across from me. My mom put me in the bassinet and put 2 small pillows beside me because she was afraid I might accidentally bump my head. As we got settled, my grandma's Rottweiler named Rocky came in. He didn't want to leave, so he stayed in our room that night. It was so hot that my mom opened the sliding glass door that led out to the balcony to let some air in for the night. We were on the 2nd floor, so she felt safe leaving it open. Soon after, she settled in and we went to sleep. It was around 3 a.m. when my mom awoke from the loud growls and barks of Rocky. It was strange to her because he never acted this way. He was always a quiet and gentle dog, so this was alarming. Then she heard me crying louder than usual and rushed to my aid. She was left shocked and speechless at what she saw, though. I was on my stomach, face down on the little mattress. She immediately picked me up to comfort me and turned her attention to Rocky, who was still growling and barking uncontrollably. He was facing the balcony. My mother turned to see what he was barking at and screamed when she saw it. She explained it was the most ugliest and most gigantic owl she's ever seen before. Its mouth and wings wide open, and its feathers seemed to be as black as coal. Rocky then ran to the balcony in an attempt to catch it, but the owl quickly flew away into the darkness. My grandpa heard the commotion and came in to check on us. He found my mother in the middle of the room, on the floor, holding me like she was shielding me, and Rocky barking at the sky. My grandma came in and was trying to keep my mom from freaking out. When she finally calmed down, they found that I had a large scratch on my leg. My grandpa pointed out that the pillows that my mother had used to keep my head in place were now on the other side of the room, as if tossed out of the way. Today, my mother tells me that I survived a kidnapping attempt from La Lechuza. Mexican legend says that La Lechuza is a creature, specifically a witch, who sold her soul to the devil in exchange for power, giving her the ability to transform into a monster, a giant owl. It is said that La Lechuza goes to hunt at night for any potential victims, like animals, drunk people, but more preferably children, to snatch and take back to her hut in the mountains, where she would devour or sacrifice them. Whenever I go to visit my family, they always call me Lechuzita as a remembrance for surviving a La Lechuza attempt. The real hero, though, is my grandma's dog, Rocky. He's the one who stopped the owl from doing anything else and chasing it away. If it weren't for him, I don't know what else could have happened. Sadly, he passed away this year. I couldn't get to see him beforehand as I live in the U.S., but I'll always remember him as a hero. I'm 17 years old now, and I still have a scar on my leg, the same place where that owl scratched me. Though I know logically that it could have been just a regular oddly gigantic owl, but it doesn't explain why it would have come into the house, thrown pillows, and leave me face planted and with a scratch that never healed properly. When Yadira told me this story, it was something that, she grew up hearing from her mother. And she told me that her and her sisters would hear screaming that came from owls, but it wasn't a normal owl screech or hoot. And they said that that's when you know it's La Lechuza, because it's not a normal hoo hoo. It'll be like a screaming sound. Somebody said that they'll even whistle. It'll be a whistling sound. And the size is important too. They're always gigantic.
It was at 3 a.m., which is also the witching hour.
Oh, the witching hour. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
So the little baby was taken from the bed and then left on the floor? It got her?
I think it attempted to take her.
But she was still on the bed.
She was still on the bed, but it had flipped her over. She was face down. And just, newborns don't know how to roll over yet. So
no. Oh, God, that's terrifying. It's terrifying because what if it really was a regular owl that's or a vulture or something, like a real bird?
Snatching a baby out the night. I know.
Yes. And that could really happen. That's horrifying. And then Rocky the Rottweiler, when you're saying that, Rocky just died this year. I'm like, how old is that fucking dog? What is it? Lechuza?
Oh, La Lechuza. So in Spanish, it just means the owl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Lechuza. I don't know why I thought it was going to be the chosen one or something, because I don't speak Spanish, so that's
it just
probably
means
why.
owl. So I have one. Oh, go ahead.
There was some archaeological dig, and there's been this skull that was a skull of a child that was found in a cave, hundreds, maybe thousands of years old. And there's been a long debate as to how this child was killed, basically, because it looked like there were claw marks inside its skull from a bird. But people are like, no, it couldn't have been a bird that did that. Long story short, there were big fucking ass birds that came down and scooped children up and took them back to their caves and ate them. The horror. We're worried about all this shit these days. At least we are not battling, well, aside from a Lechuza, monster fucking owls and birds swooping down and just snatching our children from the yards.
Yeah.
Oh my, terrifying. Okay.
It's wild.
It's death from above. I don't know why. Owls, that's scary. If pterodactyls were still around.
I love owls. I love them. And anytime I see one in the wild, it feels like a special gift. But now I think I feel a little differently about them. I can't help it.
The big ones are scary. The little saw-whet owls. Milo and I will just Google those just for loves, just every so often. It's one of our favorite things. And we just die from, Mitch calls it gamis. It's just, they're so adorable. And they live in our forests, apparently. But we haven't seen one.
I will say I've not seen a huge ass owl that could claw my eyes out. I think I might feel differently if I encountered one of those.
I feel like the ones I've seen could claw my eyes out if given the opportunity. I don't think they could lift me off the ground, but they look vicious. The barred owl, it's a big ass owl. It's almost like as big as a great horned owl. Whereas the saw-whet owls are like, oh, a little like just a stinking little baby doll of an owl that's like little fluff ball with big eyes, and then you put a little hat on it. Oh, it's the cutest thing you'll ever see. Love it.
I love your hobbies. Alrighty, so this story comes from Lacey. Lacey explains that La Lechuza is a Mexican folktale of witches turning into owls, bringing death omens. It can include stealing souls or children, death or destruction omens. My father is indigenous and he heavily believes in his folk tales. I didn't believe it until one night a huge owl landed in a tree next to our house. My dad was immediately on edge. The owl stayed there and hooted for some hours. He made all of us sleep in the living room that night. The next morning, he got a call that informed him that his mother had passed away. Either it brought us the death omen or it's a crazy coincidence. One thing I know is I will respect the fuck out of any owl I come across from now on.
That's wild. Like, I would never consider making all my family sleep in a room because we saw an owl or something.
Yeah.
But the owl is an omen of death in a lot of cultures, I think. And also, like, if it's inside your house for some reason, that is not good news. Absolutely not a good sign. Apparently, a church down in Mexico there. Where an owl got into the church, and it's a huge owl up in the rafters, and the people who go to the church are freaking out. La Lechuza, oh shit! Yeah.
So they start chanting to like this chanty rhythm to like, I don't know, protect their spirits or whatever. But this chanting makes the owl like start bobbing its head, and it's totally like dancing to these like.
The more they try to get rid of it, the like happier they're making the owl.
Jamming out.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh. But terrifying if that is like a genuine superstition of yours, right? Like,
and it's in your place of worship. Yes. Scary.
Good stories.
La Lechuza.
I still love owls, but I'm a little more scared of them now after hearing those stories.
Me too. I'll be looking a little closer. Like, do you have a witchy face? And that they're ugly. Apparently they're ugly owls. So if you see an adorable, beautiful owl, you're good. They're supposed to be like hideous and like feel scary. So.
Okay. So do you want to hear my stories, Britt?
So much.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you the story of a haunted hotel located in Colombia. And so this hotel, like, I picked it mostly because I was like, whoa, that place looks fucking awesome. It's this hotel perched on a cliff and there's these huge waterfalls next to it. And I'm like, haunted,
I want to
picturesque.
go there.
Looks magical. If you go there, you might die. Be warned.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Okay. So a lot of the information I'm going to tell you is from a website called All That's Interesting. To preface, I never took Spanish, and this is not going to be pretty to ears who are accustomed to proper Spanish pronunciation. My apologies ahead of time. I'll do my best. So according to legend, the indigenous Muisca people would leap off the nearby Tequendama Falls to escape Spanish conquistadors. Apparitions have reportedly stalked the grounds ever since. So Hotel Del Salto, which translates quite literally into the Hotel of the Leap, has purportedly been haunted for decades. Now serving as a museum, the century-old structure in Colombia overlooks a waterfall on the Bogota River. Initially used as the residential mansion home of architect Carlos Arturo Tapias, it opened its doors to guests in 1928 with unnerving consequences. Just beyond its walls, where the falls cascade down the foggy mountains, many have leaped to their deaths, either out of despair or inspired by indigenous lore. Nearly 100 years later, visitors and tourists from around the world still frequent the former hotel. The myths mishaps, and supposed supernatural incidents that occurred there will likely continue to lure visitors for years to come. Tequendama, the name of the falls near Hotel Salto, translates to "he who precipitated downward" in the indigenous Chibcha language of the Muisca people. As the story goes, native people would leap from Tequendama Falls to avoid being captured by Spanish forces who started to conquer South America in the 1500s. Rather than meeting their demise, however, the Muisca would transform into eagles mid-fall and soar into the skies. According to another Muisca myth, Bogota was flooded, but the gods created a patch and formed the waterfall to save people from dying in the flood, making the falls a doubly important site of salvation. The area was ripe with flora and fauna until the 20th century, when dams and electricity began to impact the environment. At the site of these significant myths, the mansion of Tequendama Falls was constructed. The mansion was the scene of many lavish parties throughout the decade. By the 1990s, interest waned, businesses suffered, and the Hotel Del Salto closed for good. During this period, the empty building saw curious ghost hunters and destitute squatters enter its rooms. Throughout the decades, numerous people leaped to their deaths at the hotel. Combined with the indigenous lore surrounding the falls, it's no wonder many believe the hotel and falls are haunted to this day. Some even say the Muisca cursed the land where the hotel was built. Those tragic deaths weren't the only things keeping visitors up at night. Hotel guests claimed to see apparitions inside the hotel and outside, by the falls. Some even say they heard quiet voices conversing in a strange language, possibly the spirits of the Muisca people. According to another account, the dark energy of the falls drove a hotel guest to brutally murder a beautiful young socialite in one of the rooms, splattering the walls with her blood. They say her vengeful spirit can be seen peering from the windows of the rooms where she died. While the hotel stood empty, tales of loud cries emanating from within the building at night strengthen the belief that the place is haunted. Additionally, the road leading up to the building has been the site of numerous mudslides and accidents, which some believed were a sign of further paranormal activity. Alleged hauntings aside, when Hotel Del Salto was still open for business, guests often found themselves involved in police investigations of deaths at the falls, which hurt the hotel's reputation as well. According to Express, tourists are still warned to stay close to the property at night, lest they fall off the edge by mistake. Some visitors have even fallen off the balcony, whether intentionally or not remains unknown. To top it all off, the foul-smelling water in the heavily polluted Bogota River below only reinforces the sense that something is very wrong with the hotel. The water in this river is so toxic that in some places, no life can survive.
Ooh, how many people did you say jumped from the cliff? Do they have a number?
I don't know if they had a number, for some reason 20s, but it seems like pretty much if you stay there, you're going to fall.
Just
definitely
either by ghost or by your brainwashing to jump off the edge.
Yeah, it said dozens and dozens, so I'm not really sure. I mean, it's really gorgeous, but it sounds like it's cursed. It feels like it's got to be cursed.
I mean, it's so tragic. Just the origin story of, the indigenous people jumping to not be captured by conquistadors. Like, that's tragic. Yeah. It's so sad.
And then the water turns to like toxic poison.
Yes.
And just a real spooky kind of magical, mystical, haunted site that like someone's like, you know what? That place where all those folks died, I'm going to build a house there.
And it doesn't seem like it has been very successful, like, since it's built.
No, and it's built right on the side of this mountain. It's like a cliff. But I would be very wary if anyone invites you to the Hotel Del Salto in Colombia. And also I've taken a life insurance policy out on you beforehand, perhaps. Like, don't go. Don't do it. It looks magical,
Red flags.
Though. It's apparently now a museum, which I don't know if people are still dying there at the museum or not. But for a while. The Roaring 20s. I mean, just getting wasted on the side of a cliff doesn't sound like a good idea, whether you're in a hotel or not. And you asked me how many people had died there. At least 20 people chose to end their lives there in modern times. And it's said that they chose this place because their bodies would never be found. Or perhaps some express there is something in this place's energy that pushes people to jump. They would leap from the windows into the deep abyss, and it took 6 seconds to reach the churning waters below, fittingly named Lago de los Muertos. Lago de los Muertos.
That means
Muertos.
death.
Damn it.
Muertos.
Lago de los Muertos. Lake of the Dead.
Yeah, that's a long drop.
That is 6 seconds to think about it. That's an eternity. Oh my
When
God.
You're falling. Yeah. Ooh.
So, hotel perched over the Lake of the Dead. I mean, come on.
Cursed.
So that is the haunted Hotel Del Salto.
Well done. I like that. All right. So as I was researching last night, I came across a list of Latin folklore out there. And this one especially stuck with me. This is the lore of El Silbón.
Ooh.
Silbón.
Silbón?
Silbon.
Okay.
El Silbón is an urban legend that originated in Colombia. Oh, hotel was in Colombia,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. El Silbón was said to be a spoiled farm boy who demanded his father find him a specific meat he wanted to eat. When his father didn't hurry back, he went to find him and killed him for making him wait. Not only that, but he also tore out his father's insides, and cooked them, then fed them to his mother.
Ugh.
When his mother found out, she cursed him for all eternity. It is said that she then called her father, who had him the boy beaten and eaten by dogs. El Silbón came back seeking revenge. He is known as an omen for death and is seen carrying a bag of bones, which could belong to his other victims. The legend says if you hear a whistle nearby, you are actually safe and he's far away. But if you hear a distant whistle, El Silbón is coming for you.
That is horrifying. Wait, why does that little dick kid need revenge? He fucking killed his dad because he didn't get him some
Spoiled
special
little
meat.
shit.
Which also, was that meat human? Because that is weird. That's a very strange
The dad's
request.
it's hard to come by human meat, son.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just don't know.
And then, he's going to kill his dad. There's your meat
well,
supplies
you can't
forever.
bring me my meat. I'm going to get my meat myself.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh my gosh. That reminds me of my next story, because that whistling, if you hear it close, it means they're far. If you hear it far, it means they're close, which is also part of the lore of La Llorona. Did you know this?
I did not, but I'm so glad you're talking about her because she's number one on the list of
right? Yeah, we kind of went
folklore
back
in
and
Latin
forth if we should do
America.
it, but listeners may recall that I was in a bathroom where a ghost asked me to clip my toenail as a sacrifice for La Llorona, and I did it. And so didn't really follow back around
preface
that.
It wasn't a real ghost.
It was
not. Maybe that's not.
Maybe it was a real ghost.
Maybe.
We don't know. It was still a bizarre, very unbelievable circumstance to find myself in. I have no willpower or self-preservation instincts, obviously. So anyway, I decided it was time to actually tell the story of La Llorona. So for my sake, too, I would understand what the hell I took part in. There's nothing about clipping toenails in this story, I will say. So I don't know what that was all
What kind of fucked
about.
up shit can I make this girl do?
Yeah. I was like, when are they going to get to the toenail part? Doesn't happen. So if you're waiting for that, just spoiler. Okay, so La Llorona is a prominent figure in folkloric horror. The main character of the La Llorona legend is doomed to an eternity of searching different bodies of water for her children who met a tragic end with a watery grave. So the story of La Llorona begins with a woman named Maria, blessed with natural beauty, who is determined to marry only the most handsome man she meets, shunning any man she sees as unable to match her aesthetically. There are different versions of the narrative, but the most popular states that Maria wooed her potential suitor by appearing aloof and difficult to win over. Yet once the couple eventually married and had 2 children together, the young man's thoughts began to stray, dreaming of his previously wild lifestyle on the prairies. In some versions, the ranchero is unfaithful to Maria, and in others, she merely resents his emotional indifference in comparison to the attention he continues to bestow upon their children. Her children drown, and many versions of the tale suggest their death was deliberate and at her own hands prior to drowning herself. When Maria is refused entry to heaven without her children, she is forced to search the waters for their remains during the afterlife. In the colonial Mexican version, Maria gives birth to the children of a white Spaniard above her class and murders her offspring as an immediate reaction to his refusal to make her his wife. Both a condemned woman and a goddess bearing an ominous message. In Mexico, it is often said that one way to summon La Llorona, and which translates to the weeping woman, is to light red candles and enclose yourself in a room whose walls are decorated with mirrors while repeating her name.
Nope.
No.
Gonna pass on that one.
Others say she is likely to appear when children are misbehaving, and still others have reported sightings of her estranged silhouette endlessly navigating Mexican lakes and rivers, wailing, "I miss hijos."
Mis hijos.
Oh.
Mis hijos.
Much better.
My children.
Yes, or my children. That's exactly what she's saying. Some identify her as the damned ghost of a poor woman from Ciudad Juarez who stabbed her children and disposed of them in the Rio Grande in order to win the affection of a wealthy man.
That's the version I've heard before.
Okay, and then another legend has her being actually La Malinche, the crucial interpreter and lover of Hernan Cortez, who I think was an explorer.
Cortez? Yeah.
That sounds right.
I'm pretty sure.
Because I'm like, this sounds a little too real, right? Like, it sounds very realistic, like this could have happened. And then the legend was born out of this terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
But there's quite a few first-person stories about this, mostly when people are hearing a woman crying. You'll be in a place and you'll hear the cries of a woman. According to the folklore, that if you hear the cries and they're loud and feel close, she's not close. It's when the cries are coming, they seem distant and sound distant. That is when the La Llorona comes for you.
Oh, so I was telling you that Alejandro and Yadira were telling me some stories.
Yes.
Yadira was explaining La Llorona to me, and told me that her mom, when she was younger, was living out in Laredo, Texas, and outside her window, she heard, oh God, Yadira does it so much better. Mis hijos, mis hijos. It's like a desperate, like, wailing, sad, mis hijos. She heard it outside of her window and now tells the story to all of her children of like, but now I'm curious, did it sound up close, like outside the window, or was it far away?
Because the way you just said it made it sound like it was far away, which means they're close. Oh, and that's part of the legend too, is the reason she's searching. She wants to come steal your children. That is what she needs to replace her children. So she's going to kidnap your children. And that's how Mexican parents may have kept their children in line and being like, stay in or else La Llorona will get you.
I've noticed this about almost all of the folklore from Latin America. Is that a lot of it is just scare the shit out of children.
Yes.
Don't go play near the cliff. Don't go to the water.
Yes.
All of these.
But we've heard this, I've heard that's so many of just folklore throughout different cultures.
Oh, true.
They do it to scare the kids from real dangers. It's much more effective to think that if they touch that water, a sea monster is going to swallow them whole. Or if they go into the woods, a witch is going to eat them. Or if they, sneak out at night, the owl woman witch will swoop down and gobble them up. Or if they don't obey their parents, then they're going to get kidnapped by.
What's so interesting about the La Llorona story, though, is how it spans so many countries, and that there are thousands of people who have heard or seen La Llorona. Is it just because they've been told as children and it's ingrained in their psyche, and so that's what they see? Or is she really out there haunting the waters?
I have never heard. How do you say that again?
Mis hijos. You don't say
mis
the H.
hijos. Okay, the H is silent. Mis hijos. I don't think I've ever heard anyone whispering that outside my window. Thank the fucking Lord. I don't know if it spread, but I will say that it's very reminiscent of Bloody Mary as far as lighting candles in a window, and then you have to repeat her name. I mean, that is Bloody Mary. And if it really was this woman who they said, oh boy, Maria was her name, right? So Bloody Mary, Maria, Mary, Saint,
oh shit,
that's really interesting. Although I'm scared of Bloody Mary, but I don't know what the hell she's supposed to do if you do summon her.
Why would you want to summon?
I don't know. Why do kids do that though? And I
know. Same. I did Bloody Mary.
Because it's fun to get this shit scared out of you, right?
Yeah.
And be like, oh, what's going to happen? But yeah, so I guess it had why do these appear repeatedly in different cultures and different, folklore? It is interesting. Yes. The only answer is that it's real and
solved.
Yeah, solved. Watch out.
It's real.
Bloody Mary, La Llorona. They're coming to get you.
Good stories. This was so fun.
I'm going to tell my kids this story at night tonight. This is the one. This will be their bedtime story. I'm going to set up a red
candle and lots of mirrors, and I've got to sit down, children. We've got work to do. If you, dear listeners, have a Latin lore that you would like to share, or even just any old fun story that you would like to share, you can head over to our email and email us in our hotbox.
That's SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. You can also call us on our hotline.
That number is 302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We need just one more caller. Even if you just call to shoot this shit, we're not answering. It's a recording. But you know what? It'll be fun and we'll play it on air. So do that for us, please.
Also, if you have any suggestions of episode topics you want to hear, we're all ears. Just comment on a post, DM us, let us know what you want to hear us cover. Because we just come up with shit based on.
We're pretty scatterbrained, honestly.
Yeah, we'll read one thing. We'll be like, let's do an episode on this. So we're up for it. You can also find us on all the social medias in order to do that. And that's at Facebook, Twitter. Oh, so much. Instagram. Also go visit our merch shop.
Yes, SkeleTalesPodcast.etsy. We've got some haunted shit over there, some creepy shit over there, and some honestly really cute things too over there. And that way you can support the show, which really helps us. Another way to support the show is to share with a friend or family. Or if you hear a story from your neighbor's cousin, share that too. Like,
Yeah.
we love it all.
We do. Also, hey, write us a review. If you write us a review, we will read it on the podcast. As long as it's a good one. I'm not going to sit here and read a shitty review for us. So don't try to outwit us. It's not going to work. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Again, every positive review on there helps the show. Is there anything else, Britt?
There is one last thing I wanted to tell you.
Yeah. What is that?
I'm going to butcher it. Perseguite más tarde.
Oh.
Haunt y'all later.
Perseguita más tarde. Haunt you later.
Buenos noches.
Buenas noches. Good night.
Good night.